Hey folks, this is Bardic Dragoon. Welcome back to Let's Play Grandia 2 Anniversary Edition. So when we last left off, we kind of came to the final act of the plot as the story got a little heavy, and basically it's the end of the world and our only plan so far is to run away from Valimar and his presence in the world. However, we decided to take a break from all that to come here to the special stage, Raoul Hills. The game's basically bonus dungeon. Now, it's kind of odd to say it is a bonus dungeon because it's an actual just regular area of the game, just with the enemies beefed up to match the current standards of enemies, plus these guys who are actually some of the toughest enemies in the game. You're probably going to, throughout the course of this video, not see that, because what makes them deadly is that they have one really, really powerful spell that can actually party wipe on which can very easily party wipe you. And I'm just not going to let that happen.
Haha, you'll freeze fast!
But yeah, the main reason to come here though, other than, you know, as we saw when we first entered here the other day, or in the last episode, is that this basically is, you know, a special stage, a place to go where you don't have to worry about this, to, you know, play the game without having to worry about the story or progressing it. There's also some really good loot to find here, as well as, of course, anything that you missed out on your first time through Raoul Hills. But really anything of that isn't going to matter at this point in the game. But you see, the area that we're in now, this little ruins area within Raoul Hills, has been, well, the map is still the same, but the enemy encounters, as you can see, the fact that these guys exist, and as I said, you're not going to get a chance to see it because pretty much what makes them scary is their ability to party wipe. So you just don't give them that opportunity is the prime concern when fighting them. Which means sneak attacks and lots of ridiculously powerful multi-target attacks to basically not give them a chance to fight back. Not that because the thing is the fact that they actually aren't super powerful in general. They have some pretty beefy spells. They pretty much, the abilities that they have, if I remember correctly, are a normal attack, which is 400 to 500 points of damage, I think. A boom, which can do about 1,000 points, about 800 to 900 points of damage, and then they have Baboom, the most powerful multi-target explosion element spell in the game, and when they use it, it has enough power to party wipe. So you just don't want to give them that opportunity.
Wind.
Or at least to very easily party wipe. I'm not sure if it actually literally does enough that it will kill everything. But yeah, these guys just don't give them the chance to do anything. Just don't give them the chance to cause problems and attack you.
You picked on the wrong people. Come
here with a lot of MP and SP restoring items. Always go for the sneak attack. And spam the ever-loving hell out of your most powerful spells. Okay, now I don't think that one was actually one we needed to kill. There's nothing that was guarding or keeping us from progressing forward. Okay. The next one we need to get rid of is this bad boy. I mean, I suppose we don't need to get rid of this one. We could probably sneak past him if we were really wanting to, but I don't want to risk it. Plus, the mana and skill point gains here aren't too bad, so, you know, not going to say no to more of that. Because at this point, really, that's the stuff that matters. As in this game, individual levels don't make a big difference. It's really only like the certain thresholds where like you get the ability to equip more skills that are the levels that matter. Otherwise, individual level ups aren't that great, but by boosting your skills, your magic, and your abilities, and then intelligently equipping skills, that's really where a lot of your power and strength of the a lot of the party's power and strength is going to come in at.
enemies, you shall be defeated! Take that! Sky Dragon Slash! These guys were no real challenge.
And first treasure, Lore of Magic. It's honestly not the best treasure in this area. Pretty much what it does is you use it, and it gives you 1,000 mana coins. Not something, you know, to take lightly or, you know, what's the phrase, not something to sneeze at. But, you know, not really worth the hassle of coming here if that was all they had. But there is some really good treasure here. There's also some really confusing treasure. Not within this little death maze I've heard it referred to. Which makes sense. It's a maze. And these are some of the deadliest enemies in the game. Even if you can fight them without too much difficulty, assuming you just never let them attack. But there's also a set of weapons you can find, one for each of the party members at this point in the game, that all have basically they're all 0 attack power weapons.
Oh, tainted ones, return to the world of darkness.
And, well, yeah. Why do those exist? I don't know. Like, I can understand, I think in Grandia 1 they did something similar, but those items also existed in a dungeon where the damage formula was reversed. So, or something, it was kind of, like, I don't think it was, like, strictly reversed, but, like, having higher attack power weapons actually did less damage, so you wanted to have the low attack power weapons you could find, and coincidentally, that is what you would find in that dungeon. Kind of had a, what is it from Final Fantasy IX? Ipsen Castle, I think it was, where they where they did something similar. Okay. But yeah, but in this one there isn't anything like that in the game, so the choice to have those weapons is really weird and confusing. Possibly well, we did it in the first game, kind of nod to the first game, except that makes no sense, because like, it doesn't make sense in any context. And like, okay, if it were like a long time series nod, kind of like, you know, if you had the Excalibur in, you know, Final Fantasy 15, that would make sense. The Excalibur exist outside of Final Fantasy V? Did they ever show up again in the series? I don't remember. In case it didn't, or in case, like, you guys don't know, the Excalibur, at least in Final Fantasy V, was a weapon with 0 attack power, though interestingly enough it had a 100% chance to hit, so it did have its uses if you knew what you were doing. But I digress. If, like, you know, they were to have that exist as something in Final Fantasy 15, that would make a little more sense. I think the Excalibur does pop up a few other times as kind of an, you know, reference in the series. And it's also tends not to be like, it's not something you have to go out of your way for. Then again, you just have to go to Raoul Hill Special Stage. It's in part of the normal area, which outside of these demons, the normal enemies in this dungeon are pretty much the common fodder enemies that you would be fighting at this point in the game anyway, so I suppose that's like, oh, well, whatever. Oop. Okay, so we have to go forward then. There we go. But yeah, so that one I suppose isn't as bad. It's not like you have to jump through hoops and all that, but I don't know.
Release.
It still just seems a little bit odd to have them in here. They serve literally no purpose, and even then, it's not like it's a named callback to the previous ones. They just exist as 0 damage or 0 attack power weapons because the first game had them, and then I don't think they've done that in any of the games since then. So the Grandia series, if you ask me, is kind of a series that was put down before its prime. Well, I guess I can't say put down before its prime, as there is... as this is the second game, there's the first game on originally the Sega Saturn, and then there was probably what most people know, the PlayStation release. There was actually a side game sort of thing that was basically the Grandia Digital Museum that was only on the Saturn and only in Japan. That was basically a giant fan bonus disc thing. You basically played as the main characters, and you could run through like different, like kind of optional what-if super battles, unlock concept art, do stuff like that. And it was basically just one giant dungeon that, or no, it's like 4 dungeons that you ran through. It was kind of an interesting concept from what I hear. Gameplay-wise, it's basically just the original Grandia, but without all the story and dungeons. There we go. Oh, energy charm. Darn, not what I was hoping it was. Ah, hey, there's another item here. Platinum feather. Kind of useful, I guess. Oh yeah, and all the old treasures do still exist here. I think I mentioned that, but it's not as interesting or as important as the new stuff. There we go.
Release wind.
But yeah, and then there was actually also Japan exclusive, but on the Game Boy Color, there is Grandia Parallel Trippers, which from what I hear is actually kind of an interesting experience. It basically takes the Grandia battle system, removes the spacing elements to it, and adds like a card system. Honestly, I remember reading about it back in the, like before I even played the original Grandia, and when I was in middle school at the time, it was like 98, 99, and like reading about it as well as the Star Ocean Blue Sphere, I think it was, basically the sequel to Star Ocean, the second story, and like not as in like Star Ocean the third, or Star Ocean Till the End of Time, Star Ocean 3, however you want to call it, is also a sequel, but like this was literally a sequel to second story, the same cast of characters, taking place like months after after that one, as opposed to Till the End of Time, which takes place a few hundred, if not 1,000 years after second story. Yeah, whatever.
I pray that we shall be safe ahead.
But what was I talking about? But yeah, and I remember like reading about like this sounds kind of interesting. I didn't even know what Grandia was at the time. Like I never played. I mean, at that point, oh hey, yay, achievement! Drank 100 potions. I thought that only counted if you drank them in battle. Whatever. I'm not gonna complain. Pardon me. All right. He's there. There we go. And yeah, but like I said, it's one of those things I've partially wanted to play, but the problem is, it is very text heavy. It's Japan exclusive, and I don't think there's any kind of fan translation out there, so, you know, tough if you don't speak Japanese. I think there were attempts to do it, but I think like one of those things, the way that the text was coded into the game was like really weird to crack, so the people working on it never got very far with it. Which always baffles. Like, it's one of those things that's always kind of interesting, like fan translations. Like, it's, oh well, why not just, you know, oh, if you speak Japanese, you know, why don't you just translate it? And well, yeah, you got to put the English script into the game, which is oftentimes the hardest part. Maybe, I don't know. Cause like some of those things that I've heard, like reading actual stuff from people doing translations of like, you know, fan translations of games, like the translation is like, you know, it's like kind of 45% translation, 55% hacking the game, and you don't necessarily have, you know, the same skills for that in an individual person kind of thing. And then of course you get games where it's like just really weird how they put the code in, how the game is coded, like, you know, hacking it is a giant mess because the code is a giant mess or something. I don't know. This is one of those things, like, I'm talking about stuff that I literally know very little to nothing about. Okay, no, that's where we just came from. Is there anything? Okay, he's over there. There doesn't look like anything over here. Okay. Sonic Belt. There we go. That's the last belt we need in the game to get an achievement for finding all the belts. And boom! Another fight! But yeah, I know it's one of those things I've always kind of wanted to play it, especially after playing the original Grandia. Because I still feel the original Grandia had the funnest cast and I would argue most interesting story. Like, this one is a lot more in-depth and has some really interesting twists and turns. But I also feel that, like, Grandia 2, or like the original Grandia story is just more fun. Like, I can't think of a better way to describe it. And yeah, it's a really subjective thing. Oh, the story, it's more fun. That's why it's better. That's pointless. It's not, there's like super subjective and has really no basis in actual criticism, but I can't really put my finger on what it is. The cast to me resonates and feels a lot more fun and interesting than the cast here, which have their moments, but like this was very clearly written as a more serious story, for better or for worse. The story is, in a lot of ways, better. I mean, like, I think I've mentioned it literally before, but without giving too many spoilers, Grandia 1's story literally kind of centers on, I want to be an adventurer, find ancient ruins, they told me to go west, so I go west, find more ancient ruins, they tell me to go west, I go west again, keep going west until eventually, okay, now we're in conflict with the military. Oh, and apparently we've gone past the end of the world, except apparently that's, you know, it's made out to be this big thing. Yeah! A final necklace, too. Like, it's made out to be this big thing, like, oh, the end of the world. No one has passed this point. Oh, well, that's like, okay, fine, there's whole civilizations of, like, half-human, half-beast people. Oh, and then there's just, like, normal people on this side of the world, and the military managed to get by as well without any difficulty, and why was this supposed to be challenging? What is happening here? But yeah, like, you keep going west, and then suddenly, oh, it's the end of the world. Oh, by the way, I guess it's third act. We should probably have, like, a central crisis that needs resolving to save the world, because we're a JRPG. It's the end of the world! Save it now! Or whatever. It's kind of arbitrary weird, and, like, doesn't really go anywhere or have any real meaning or purpose for anything to happen. But the characters are fun and interesting. The individual events that lead up to it are fun and interesting. But the overall thrust of the narrative kind of goes nowhere. This one has a much better, you know, central thrust of the narrative. And the cast still has some of that fun and interest, but it's just not quite on the same level as the original Grandia, at least in my opinion. Grandia Extreme is literally the dungeon crawler entry in the series. It has no plot. And in a lot of ways, that's why I like it, to a certain extent. Like, going back to it a few years ago, it was a lot more grindy than I remember it being. Which is weird, because, like, I should have remembered it being grindy, but it's like, you literally, like, there's a total of 8 dungeons in the game, and the way the game is arguably intended to be played,
These guys were no
you're going to do each of those, like, there's the first 4 dungeons, you're going to end up doing those a total of 3 times each. The second set of 4 dungeons, you're going to end up doing probably 2 times each. Oh, and then there's a randomized final dungeon, and then the actual bonus dungeon, which is also completely randomized. So, you know, have fun with that. The fact that it's all about the Grandia battle system does give it a certain amount of appeal. Okay, where is the thing we're looking for? Because we got those 2 belts, there is one last thing. There we go. Is this the fairy egg or the destruction egg? Fairy egg. The fairy egg is one of the 2 most powerful mana eggs. It has, I think literally once you've like unlocked all the spells inside of it, it has every healing and support spell available. And Soul of a Hero. I think that's the one that's the other big one that we want here. Yeah, doubles the experience earned. Now, as I said, by this point in the game, skill and mana coins are the far more useful thing, but you know, more experience isn't a bad thing necessarily. But ultimately, that has been the Raoul Hills, well, the Death Maze. As I said, there is more to the special stage, but it's really just Raoul Hills with normal enemies that should be fighting by this stage of the game anyway, populating instead. And like I said, and I think actually we'll go try and find them right now before we head out of here to get back on course with the story. So I can find my way out of this stupid maze. Ow. Remember correctly, there's that shoreline. I think this will pass us right past, yeah. Heal up, so I think I'm already fully healed anyway. So then it was over here, the other entrance to Raoul Hills 1, which is where the pointless zeroed power, or the pointless powerless weapons are. Yep, there we go. And there they are. Rusty hoop, zero broadsword, useless staff, and dull knife. Really no point in having these weapons, but I figure I'm here. Why not? But yeah, let's get out of here. Oh, but I was talking about the Grandia series, the stories. But yeah, like I said, Grandia Extreme, like, its story actually has some interesting ideas and themes, but it's literally a grindy dungeon crawler, so you'll go, okay, this is the story, then you'll play for like 10 or 15 hours through one section. It's like, okay, now there's this plot twist, then you play through another 10, 15 hours. Oh, then there's this plot twist, and another 10 to 15 hours. Actually, no, by that point, that's the end game. Well, actually, considering you're kind of, suggested to replay the dungeons again, it might actually be another 10 or 15 hours, because at that point you're literally repeating the main 4 dungeons, or the main 8 dungeons by that point. And then it's like, oh, well, now it's another plot twist, and then the end of the game, and like, it's not terrible, but the story isn't the main point, and I've already said my piece about Grandia 3's storyline being an unfinished, jumbled together mess. Still probably going to do a playthrough of it, though, having played through this. Oh, hey! At least he recognizes that. Okay, well, with the Raoul Hills special stage out of the way, I guess we'll call it a day. Tune in next time where we get back on track with the plot, and figure out what the heck we're going to do about the fact that it's the end of the world as we know it, and no, in fact, we are not feeling fine. And on that random out-of-nowhere musical reference, I think I'm going to call it a day. So, until next time, as always, later, folks.